what does it really mean to shift to a disciple-making culture?
Well, I think for some, the answer has been, we've got to start over completely.
Jesus said a lot of things, but the mission he gave us was very clear. Go and make disciples who look like me, walk like me, talk like me, and do what I would do.
He came back to me 6 months after this guy. He said, man, I've been on our church staff for a decade, and this is the first time I've ever felt like I'm actually in ministry. And it happened because he was discipling 5 men.
I think that's a powerful question, man. When you're in ministry, are you really doing ministry? All right. Welcome back to the Disciple Makers Podcast.
With new and improved sound effects. Man, that's a huge advancement in the Disciple Makers Podcast.
I agree. I think we need to have it every time. As you know, we are your hosts.
Oh, yeah.
Josh Howard and Jason Ishmael, the handsome one.
Wow, I appreciate that. And thanks for remembering my name.
Jason and I have been best friends since college, so we will poke at one another quite often.
It's fun.
So here's, guys, what we're going to talk about in this episode is exciting, and I'm excited to kind of see where it goes. And we're going to unpack a few things, but really here's the big thing. We recently did a study at Discipleship.org where we surveyed churches all over the country and found that less than 5% of them had a true functional disciple-making culture. Okay?
That's not very many.
Not great, especially when that's the main thing Jesus asked us to do, right? Now, aspirationally, everybody wants to, of course, but functionally, with a system behind it, less than 5% were really having a true culture of disciple-making in the church as the core mission of everything they do, right? And so we have now been on a mission at Discipleship.org to see what would it look like if we could go from less than 5% to 16% of churches in America. Now, let me explain for a second, because we've gotten bad emails when we talk about this. It's like, why would you only want 16% of churches? Isn't that like the lowest bar you could set?
You should want 100%.
You want 100%. Okay? We do want 100%. Okay, so let me clarify that. We do want 100%. But Malcolm Gladwell, in his book called Tipping Point, gives a very interesting fact that when you get to 16% of a population, that's actually tipping point where it would begin to influence and infiltrate the rest of the population, which is pretty cool to think about. Yeah. So the reason why we've said that 16% number is because if we can get at least 16% of churches in America with a functional, practical, disciple-making culture, then that will begin to influence and infiltrate and help churches all over America get to that point. So yes, the vision and goal is 100%, but our first mile marker there is moving from less than 5% to 16%, so we hit tipping point.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that's what this episode is going to be about, guys. We're going to talk about that vision some, and we're going to talk about what does it really mean to shift to a disciple-making culture? What does that even look like? What does it mean? And what do we mean when we say that? And we're going to kind of riff back and forth on that, bro, and talk about that. And so we are so glad that you are with us for this, and we hope that it helps you really begin to think through what does it look like to build out a culture that is pumping out disciples, and not only disciples, but disciples who can go make more. Amen?
Exactly.
I want you to start out, Jason. You and I have talked a lot, and I love you lead a church in Iowa. Iowa?
Iowa? Where's that? What is Iowa? Huh?
We were just talking off camera about how a lot of people, when they hear Iowa, for whatever reason, they repeat it with a question mark after.
Yeah, I meet people all the time. Hey, where are you from? I'm from Iowa. They say, Iowa? No, it's Iowa. There's no question mark at the end. It's just Iowa.
Iowa.
It doesn't even have a period at the end. It's just Iowa.
Just Iowa. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So you're in Iowa.
Iowa?
Yeah, Iowa. But I love what you talk about as you guys are trying to shift your culture at the church that you lead. You talk something around turning on the spigots.
Turn on the spigots. That's exactly.
Spigots.
It is technically a spigot.
You're right, not a spigot.
Yep. Yeah, so but you can say whatever you want.
G and not a K. So turn on the spigots or hijacking every ministry for the sake of disciple making.
Exactly.
Talk to us about that, because this is one of the pieces that if we're going to see culture shift, it's going to be movements like this. It's going to be shifts like this that we're talking about. So talk to us about that, man. I want to hear it.
Yeah, the cool part about this is that I literally, all I had to do was preach one sermon on discipleship, and automatically the entire thing shifted.
Church.
It clicks right in.
As a matter of fact, not just your church, every church in Iowa.
Yeah, it just, obviously, I hope you sense our sarcasm there. It feels like that's so often what we want.
Right.
And if we could just, I said it. I told everybody, here's what it's supposed to be. Didn't you listen to the podcast? Haven't you heard a sermon about this? What's taking so long?
Yep.
Well, the reality is we're talking about culture. We're talking about the things that are underneath of all of the things that we do.
Yeah.
Something I know Bobby loves to say this, and among others, that culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yes.
And absolutely and completely. And so for us, how do we get to this point? We have a beautiful, thriving, healthy church filled with people that love Jesus, filled with people that have been on mission for a long time. But oftentimes, like every other, and I'm included in this, it is a bit of a revelation for the American church right now in the last 5 to 10 years to be going, oh.
Yeah.
Josh, I'm going to be honest with you. You started Ignite how many years ago now?
It's been... we started the process about 12 years ago, but we've been running after it for about 10.
So, I remember when you told me. We were on a phone call halfway across the world, catching up, and you said, man, I'm thinking about starting this thing about disciple making. And you'd been there for a while.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to this and thinking okay, well, yeah, isn't that kind of what we do?
Don't we already do that,
Isn't
Josh?
that already don't we already have disciple making machines right now that are producing disciples? And of course, I was so steeped in thinking that we were satisfying the mission. I grew up watching incredible preachers. I remember in 7th grade listening to Mark Johnson in Springfield, Illinois. The Lord used that guy to impact me so much. And as a kid, I thought, man, I'm going to grow up and I want to be like Mark. I'm going to preach awesome sermons.
Yep.
And then the world's going to change.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that, Mark did anything other than preach sermons.
That's all he did, man.
He just wakes up on Sundays, he preaches a sermon,
Wouldn't
he goes
it
back.
Be great if it were that easy. Honestly, you and I both. There is nothing I love more than preaching. Okay.
Yep. Oh, dude,
and
I love it.
If I could only
fun.
do that, I think I'd die a happy man. Okay, if that was what I got to do every day.
Yep.
But it's just the fact of the matter is, although that does make an impact, it's not preaching alone isn't leading to disciples being made. I wish it did. That would be amazing.
Yep.
But
it helps. Not. It can help galvanize people around vision.
Yep.
And keep us focused on what is most important.
Yeah.
But it is not a substitute for actually doing it. And so,
before you move on, I had talking about these, people thinking that they're going to preach one sermon and everything's going to change, right? Back when we first started Ignite, it was a few years after that. I had a guy in America who we were talking to about disciple making and disciple making movements, and he wanted to shift his church, early adopter, because this had not taken root much in America at that point. And so he wanted to really give it a go. And so I talked with him through it. I even gave him some training and things like that. And so he called me, I think it was a couple months later, and he goes, yeah, Josh, we tried that. It didn't work. And I was like, it's been 2 months. What have you really tried? He goes, we did a Sunday school class, and literally what they did is we had some training videos that they showed. We produced some at Ignite in the early days. They literally showed our training videos in a Sunday school class and prayed at the end and let people go like that. And they were thinking that was going to shift the culture of their church. Number one, very few people even then came to Sunday school. Okay, number one. Number two, it's literally just a video and sending them out. There's no actual...
You got to practice it.
Yeah, there's no actual modeling or training happening. The culture underneath is not being changed. My friend Roy Moran says all the time, Josh, at the beginning, when we tried to shift to a disciple-making culture, we thought we had a training problem. We thought we needed to train all of our people on how to do this, and if they just knew how to do it, they were going to do it. But what he realized was, he said, Josh, we didn't have a training problem. We had a culture problem. And our people didn't want to do it. Even after they knew how to do it, they didn't want to do it. We had a heart problem. We had a culture problem, right?
Yep.
And so it's not that just, sermons, teaching, whatever, are going to be making the impact we hope they will. It's going to take a lot more under the surface, under the hood change. So anyway, I cut you off though. Please.
Oh, you're good.
Continue.
I want to become a great chef, so I watch a lot of Iron Chef while eating potato chips on the couch. Not going to get you there. You might need to spend some time in the kitchen.
Why? Can't I watch what's his face, Gordon Ramsay, make a really good steak?
Yeah, screaming at people, and surely that's going to happen.
And also cutting people off on podcasts. He would definitely do that. So I'm feeling good about it.
A masterclass in communication. Well done. So how does the church move in this? So obviously it's more than just simply saying, hey, here's what needs to be done. Yeah. If you're a leader, you've got to be okay saying the same thing over and over again, first of all.
Yeah.
You have to be okay repeating the mission again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Yeah. And when you've said it 1,000 times, you say it 1,000 more times. Jesus does not need me or you or anybody else to innovate his mission that he commanded. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need us to tweak it for him. The mission of making disciples has been the mission for 2,000 years. Yep. It is still alive and thriving and fresh and powerful. And so I think about our church. So I've been there for 3 years now, and I've just been so blessed by this group of people. There is a high value for the Word of God. They want the truth. They crave the truth. There is a high level of commitment and faithfulness. And like the rest of American churches, however, there were only a handful of people that were truly engaged in making disciples. And oftentimes we've kind of got these pockets of systems, and it's really a lot of mechanisms that we're able to control, that we're able to at least have some degree of direction in the outcomes. In the process of that, of course, we've got really limited impact as a result. I mean, you think about who's there and what's possible, and then what's actually happening. It's a huge gap. We had a lot of people who come and just watch.
Yep.
A lot of people who maybe like the preacher and maybe like the music, or we have free donuts. They like a donut. They're gonna consume something. And it's funny because a lot of people inevitably, having consumed long enough, will finally get tired of it. They'll leave, and they go find something else that maybe satisfies them more, or at least for that season. So how do you shift things? Well, I think for some, the answer has been, we've got to start over completely. And that means a brand new church plant. That means a brand new, radically different approach to doing church. And in America right now, there are lots of pockets of house church movements that are burgeoning and reaching people that maybe would never go into a traditional church. And praise the Lord for that.
Yeah, it's it's God's moving in radical ways in that way, which is great.
Now, there are a lot of us, however, that are we're still here. We're going to show up on Sunday, and we've got a whole bunch of folks that we want to hang out with and see. And there's some power in combining ourselves and concentrating our impact together. So how do you take a church that many would say is a legacy church model or a traditional church? How can that church shift toward discipleship? This answer isn't going to be exhaustive, but I'll give you one piece that's helping us a ton. And it is something that is happening little by little. As we continue to hold this up constantly, we hold up attempts as celebration. Hey, we tried this. We hold up fruit from this all the time, and you see it grow on its own. I can't make it grow faster. I cannot force fruit through it, but I can foster it. So what we are attempting to do is to look at our church, and our church in particular. More people seem to be willing to serve than to go to a traditional small group. And I think those things are good. I think traditional small groups are great if somebody's being reached there, if it's growing. I think some of our small groups are actively, however, asking the question of themselves, when is the last time this small group produced a disciple? And I have a couple of them that literally had that conversation, a tough conversation, a small group that had been meeting for a decade. And they said, well, outside of us, no one. And these are high-level, super faithful people.
Yeah.
And we've got them cloistered to where they have literally been isolated from the mission.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting to me, though, is that we have tons of people. And for instance, we have a coffee shop at the church. And I think right now there are somewhere between like 90 and 100 people
They
that
serve
volunteer.
Starbucks?
And no, sir.
Gosh.
There's a ton of people that love being a part of that team because they're naturally inclined for hospitality. They want to help, and then they get their hands dirty. It's great. What if serving coffee was actually just an excuse to expose them to a discipleship relationship?
Yeah.
And to give them an excuse to connect to somebody else in a
Yeah.
discipleship relationship.
That's good, man.
Now, for this, obviously, we're talking about people that are already in the context of a church.
Yeah.
And I think we have to admit that while we also need to be reaching our communities, reaching the lost in our world, that we're not even discipling the people that are showing up every single weekend.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to say that we're doing both of those things.
Yep.
And for us, the way I put it is we're just turning on every possible spigot. We are hijacking every single ministry. Every single thing you do is really just an excuse to be discipled and to make a disciple.
Yeah.
It's not like, great, I love that you're playing the drums. And man, oh man, am I so happy
Yep.
that we've got syncopation during our worship. But what if it was really just an excuse to be exposed to something even more significant?
Yeah. Dude, that's so good. And I think we need to think about that. Like, not only in our churches, but in our lives, are we turning on every spigot? Are we making sure that every tap, every area of our lives and of our ministries and of our churches and our nonprofits are being hijacked for the sake of disciple making and mission? Because Jesus said a lot of things, but the mission he gave us was very clear. Although church planting is awesome, he never told us to go plant churches. Although getting our people to attend church is great, he never talked about church attendance. Although tithing is awesome, he never told us to go make people who tithe. What he did say is, I want you to go make disciples who... Basically, I'm ad-libbing a little bit here, but based on Jesus' life and ministry, I feel like I can honestly be truthful to the text and say this. Go and make disciples who look like me, walk like me, talk like me, and do what I would do.
That's what discipleship is.
Yeah, that's what it is. And so what does it look like for us to hijack everything for the sake of helping people look and love and act more like Jesus? What does it look like for us to make sure that every area of our lives and ministry is on mission to be disciples who make disciples? And so I love that you're thinking in that direction. And that's the beginning of culture change, really. It's making sure that the mission is clear, right? Because culture, man, has so much to do with the mission that we're on, the vision that God has given us, and the destination that we're running at together. That sets the course. It sets the pathway you go, and it sets the culture very well when, hey, this is the type of people we're going to be, right?
Yeah.
So often, bro, like and this is, many years ago, because of the boom in the business world, we at the church, and I talk about the church as a whole, we got on this kick with having mission statements and vision statements and values and all that stuff, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
The problem is we get into a room and dream up aspirational vision and aspirational values that have nothing to do with how we actually live every single day right now. So we're a people who, generously and sacrificially give for the mission to be accomplished, and we say all these things that honestly, if we lived that way, would be amazing, okay?
Right.
But that's not the underlying culture in our churches. It's just the aspirational vision of what we one day hope to become. What we've got to set is we are going to be a people who live this way. This is the culture. If you're going to be a part of this, this is who we are. Now, if you're not quite ready to be a part of who we are, that's okay. You can come and watch. You can come and see. You can come and be a part of it in any way we want. But if you're going to be a part of this, this is what it means. That's at the core what culture really is. It's about the type of people we're going to be. It's the actual values we live by, not that's up on a board somewhere, but the ones we actually live by, the ones that determine how we function, how we live, how we make decisions, how we spend money, all that stuff. sets culture, right? And unintentionally, because of the world that we live in, guys, we've created in most of our churches a consumeristic, I can use a few other adjectives there, but let's just keep it consumeristic. A consumeristic culture that people, they come in wanting to be fed and blessed, and if we don't have the right programs, they'll go somewhere else. We don't have good preaching, they go somewhere else. Don't have great worship, we go somewhere else. They don't have great kids ministry, we go somewhere else. I literally overheard at a restaurant, I'm not making this up, a family sitting right next to me one Sunday after church. They didn't go to the church that I was attending at the time, went to another church, and I overheard a family talking. The guy was talking to his wife. Baby, we visited 3 different churches. The one last week had the best donuts. I want to go back there.
What? Oh, man.
The best.
Oh, no.
Friends, look at me in the face right here. Come on. Come close. Come close. The best donuts? That's how we're going to pick a church? You know what I mean? And so, anyway, it wasn't about anything else. It was the best donuts. And so, it's like, okay, we're way off where we need to be, right? Yep. And so, how can we shift culture? I think number one, man, well, you've already said number one. Number two, I think as leaders, it's got to start with us, man.
Yeah.
We have got to show the way of what it means to live this way, what it means to be a disciple first, what it means to, whether I'm the senior pastor or whatever, I'm going to be a disciple who makes disciples. Like, this is the way we live. This is the way we act. This is the way we pray. This is the way we function. And these are the types of people we're going to be. And I'm going to show you by the way I live that this is the way we're going to be. Yep. It's got to start with us, man. If it doesn't, the culture will never change.
Yep. And I ran into one of our student pastors this past week, and she was meeting with 3 young ladies, and discipleship. I mean, this is her pouring into 3.
Yep.
And they waved me over. They were in our lobby, and I happened to just walk by. It was early in Sunday afternoon, and I was so moved. I mean, because this is a lady who has a ton of responsibility. There's lots of demands on her time. She's got lots of programs that she oversees and pours her life into. And I looked at her and those 3 girls and I said, this is the most important thing that she's going to do all week. Far and away, this is the most important thing she's going to do all week. What would happen if she didn't? Because who else is going to do this?
Yeah.
Who else?
Yep.
We can't expect everybody else to do something that leadership doesn't do.
Yep.
I preach, so now you guys go do the work. Like, no, I'm not going to. I actually don't want to listen to that person.
Yeah.
Right. I can't trust what that person says.
Yep.
You got to eat your own cooking.
Yeah.
Do what you say.
Yeah.
Because Jesus never preached and then didn't do what he talked about.
No, do as I say, not as I do. Yeah. Makes you sick to your stomach.
Man, but we've been there. And again, I don't think that this is been out of malice or laziness or ill intent. Yeah. This is because we really did think if we could just get people to show up to the building, the rest is going to fall into place. And you know what's so beautiful about this? God still moved anyway.
Yeah.
The gospel's that powerful. It's that strong that he could still move. What's going to happen though when we start to shift from 3 to 5% to 10 to 16%? I mean, we're talking about momentum that begets momentum. This is this snowball type of thing that perpetuates itself. This is how you change a nation.
Yeah. Amen, man. Well, and then we look at, guys, the diffusion of innovation, which basically talks about there's catalysts at the beginning.
Yeah, get your bell curve out.
The big bell curve. But we've got catalysts at the beginning, the first few percent. Those are the people that they're cutting edge innovators, right? They're ready to start new stuff. Then you got the next percentage, which is around 10 to 15% or so, that are early adopters. These are people that when they see a new idea, they're going to jump on it and they'll give it a go, even if there's not social proof to back it up yet. They're just ready to give anything a new try and go after it. Then you've got, I forget what they exact call them. It'll be up on the screen here, but the middle adopters basically, who after the early adopters see some success, then they'll start doing that. Then you got late adopters, and then what you got as stragglers at the very end, who they're not going to change until everyone else is doing it, and then they'll do it, right? But here's the key here, guys. If we're going to get to 16% of churches, we have got to have churches who stand up, pastors and leaders who stand up and say, I'm going to be the catalyst. I'm going to be the early adopter. There's not social proof yet, but we're going to figure this out because it is so important. We've got to do something.
Yeah.
And there are some of you out there watching right now, guys, you were gifted by God to be apostolic, entrepreneurial go-getters that are ready to try new stuff, throw stuff at the wall, see if it sticks. Man, we have got to have churches and leaders that are going to step up and say, I'll take the place of I'll be in the place of the catalyst. I'll be in the place of the early adopters, and we're going to figure this out in North America so that way we can create reproducible models that churches all over the country can use. And so if you're out there right now and you want to be one of those, I'm not pitching any program right now. I'm not pitching any, but seriously, we are looking for leaders in churches like that in order to help you shift the culture of your church, and we will come alongside of you and help you in any way possible to see this happen, because Jesus is longing for his bride to be awakened in a powerful way all over the country, to be disciples who make disciples, to multiply disciples and saturate this nation for the sake of the gospel. And we've got to have some men and women that stand up and say, we're going to go first. We're going to be trailblazers, man. We're going to blaze the trail. We're going to cut the path. And yeah, we'll make some mistakes. I've got a buddy in Florence, Kentucky.
Okay.
Florence Y'all. That's what, literally their minor league baseball team is Florence Y'alls. That's the name of their team. No awesome. Joke. Didn't make that up. You can't make something like that up.
What does the Y'all mascot look like?
I actually don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
It's probably some dude, big baseball head guy or something. I don't know. I just made that up. I have no idea what Y'all looks like. But he literally says their motto for their church, okay, that he says all the time, because they want to be early adopters or catalysts. And he says, hey, our motto is we're just going to suck forward. Because when we first start doing something new, we're going to suck at it. We're not going to be great at it. And so we want all of our people to know it's okay. Like, you pick up a sport for the first time, you're terrible at it. That's okay. The first time you go bowling, you suck. That's okay. The first time you pick up a baseball bat, you may not be able to hit it right away. That's okay. And so when it comes to this disciple-making thing, if we're going to see churches that really see disciples made who multiply, you're going to probably not be great at it at the beginning if you're not currently doing it. And that's okay. Let's suck forward, okay? Don't put that on T-shirts anywhere, guys. Maybe we should say fail forward. Maybe that's a better way to say it, okay? But we're going to fail forward. We're going to make some mistakes. It's going to be messy. That's okay, right? There's no church right now in America that has all this figured out, that has the silver bullet. That's okay. Yep. Let's figure it out. Let's fail forward. Let's suck forward, and let's just throw some stuff at the wall. Let's see what sticks. And guys, listen, and we mean this. We want to help you as you begin to put this into practice, whether it's in your personal life or in your church culture. We want to see as many disciples made and multiplied as possible, and we would love to help you and join you in the battle to see this battle won in North America.
Yeah. Any progress, man, any progress is eternal. It's huge victories.
100%,
Any
man.
progress.
And when we try it, here's the big deal, guys. If you're going to try to shift culture in your church, you've got to celebrate even the attempts at obedience.
Yep.
Not just the fruit. We're so tempted to only celebrate the fruit, okay?
Yeah. This guy went, knocked on a door, and now there's 10,000 people.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Tell that story.
Yeah, tell that story. What we don't tell is the guy who knocks on the door or almost knocks on the door and then turns around and doesn't do it, but he literally got out of his house, drove somewhere, saying, I'm going to go tell my neighbor about Jesus, got up to the door, and then freaked out and walked away. That's actually a win in my book. He felt so strongly that he got up out of his recliner, turned Netflix off, got in the car, drove to his neighbor's house that he felt the Lord telling him to go to, got up to the door. That's a win, man. Next time, do it again. Just knock, okay? Yeah. Whatever. Or the guy that says, oh man, I feel like I need to go share the gospel at Starbucks or whatever. He gets to Starbucks and chickens out and can't talk about Jesus, but he did have a halfway spiritual conversation with somebody. Great. That's a win. Tell that story. Like, we're failing forward, guys. That's okay. Like, let's be comfortable with the mess. Let's be comfortable with trying to figure this out. Let's be comfortable knowing, hey, listen, less than 5% have this figured out. even those don't have it figured out all the way. They're also still trying to figure it out. There's still a lot of duct tape on this, guys, right? Let's be comfortable with the mess. Let's take steps forward, and let's decide, man, this is so important. This is Jesus' mission. We've got to figure it out. And so let's be comfortable and celebrate even the attempts at it. Like, did you try? Great. Did you do more than you did last week? Great. Let's celebrate that, put that on stage, talk about it, because then people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
If you're only celebrating the tremendous fruits, then a lot of people are like, well, I could never do that. But you celebrate the guy who stumbled through a Jesus conversation for 3 minutes and was scared to death the whole time, and the person spit in their face and said no. That is amazing.
You took steps of courage and boldness.
You celebrate that, man.
Such beautiful things when you see progress forward. I had a shift for us a couple years ago. We were talking about key objectives for the year in our staff, and I said, all right, guys, I'm pretty confident that you're going to do whatever your job is, that you guys are all competent people, you're high character people, you work hard, and your ministries. I mean, obviously, if you stop doing what you do, everybody's going to notice. And so I'm sure that you're going to continue to persist in what is your responsibility. But I'm here to tell you that your real job is not managing the program that you oversee. It was my favorite guy to talk to this about was our executive pastor, who, he's got his hands on all kinds of stuff that is important. He's got business stuff that he has to handle. He's got legal stuff that he has to handle. There's all of these details that he oversees. And I teased him. I said, man, he had his computer out. He's got like 3 monitors. It's just all this stuff is stretched across. And I said, dude, this is your marketable skill. Like, you have a thing that you get paid for.
Yeah.
But your real job is making disciples.
Yeah.
You have a marketable skill that subsidizes your real job, your real life, which is making disciples. And when that starts to click, we've seen this in some of our staff. Not all of them are 100% engaged yet. They're all on the way. We had one. He works and oversees our tech, and this guy is brilliant. He can do anything he wants, and he oversees all the tech. He's got all this stuff, and he's been doing it for a decade plus. And we said, all right, key objectives. What if your key objectives this year were the first names of people that you were discipling? Yeah. That's your key objective.
That's awesome.
So name your key objective, human beings. And if you could accomplish that, disciple those folks, man, I would say that's a successful year.
That's beautiful.
And if that handful of people does that again and births another generation, we're starting to see the snowball start to, by the time you get to the 4th and 5th generation, this thing has exploded.
Yep.
So he came back to me 6 months after this guy, he said, man, I've been on our church staff for a decade, and this is the first time I've ever felt like I'm actually in ministry.
Wow.
And it happened because he was discipling 5 men.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man.
Like, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
This is a guy that oversees things that go online, that touch our entire body and community and region.
Yep.
And he says the first time I ever felt like I was doing ministry was when I poured my life into 5 men.
Wow.
Like, what?
Wow.
That's it. That's it.
So I think that's a powerful question, man. Are you, when you're in ministry, are you really doing ministry? And I would say that everything that we're doing for the kingdom is ministry, so I don't want to split hairs there. But I will say, I think we've got to ask ourselves that question and ask ourselves as leaders if we're empowering our people to do that as well, right?
Is it fruitful toil?
Yeah.
Is it fruitful?
Yeah.
It's okay to honestly ask that question.
Yeah.
And there are some things that we do that are important, but they don't necessarily produce tons and tons of fruit.
Right.
Directly.
Yep.
But again, what if they were just an occasion to be able to disciple?
Yep.
We got another guy. This is a dude who showed up, battling an alcohol addiction. He is coming up on his first year of sobriety that he fought for 20 plus years.
Yep.
And the Lord set him free. And I'll never forget the way he talked about the first, he came back to me, we talked all the time. Comes back, I think we have a conversation probably 3 or 4 months in. He said, Jason, this has been the hardest 3 months of my entire life.
Yeah.
The first 3 months with Jesus has been so hard. But I'm going to tell you, man, I'm never going back. It's been so worth it. We continue to, and it's funny, I wasn't discipling this guy, but the executive pastor was. There was another couple of guys in some of our recovery ministry that were also connected with him, seeing him make progress, seeing him walk forward. Well, he got a job about 5 hours north, and he moves up to Wisconsin. He comes back to visit in Iowa, and he says, man, I just had this crazy thing. I'm up in Wisconsin, and across the street from where I work is a nursing home. And the Lord, I just felt so compelled. He said, you need to go over there and tell them you want to help. And he's like, what? So he walks in. And he says, hey, I want to volunteer. And the lady looks at him like he's insane. And he's like, well, aren't there a lot of people? She's like, no one does this. No one does this. And they're like, we're so glad to have you. This guy is in his late 40s. And right now, the primary mission field that he is in is hanging out with a handful of guys in their 70s and 80s in the nursing home.
Wow.
Hanging out with them week by week, pouring his life into them, discipling some 70 and 80-year-olds. I mean, this is
that's awesome.
It's incredible. This is the guy who 2 years ago was barely sober enough to work. And now he's walking into a nursing home saying, can I help?
That's so awesome.
It's incredible stuff. But it's like any steps, any progress, because these are all things that are elevating the temperature. All of these things are raising the temperature of discipleship and mission in our context. That's and it is going to take all of our lives. There is never going to be a point in time where I say, man, Josh, high five. We can stop talking about discipleship.
Right.
It's accomplished. We've done it.
Yep.
We are never going to be through with this, because there's always going to be one more person to reach. There's always going to be one more step to take of obedience with Jesus. Man, I say it is absolutely worth it then. It is worth it for every single one. Every single one.
Amen, bro. Amen. Well, guys, listen, I hope this has been helpful for you. This is always a ton of fun to do this together and to chat through this. But as we've been talking, I just want you to really be thinking and praying through what are some of those steps that you could take in your personal life or in your church to begin to shift the culture towards a true disciple-making culture, or to raise the temperature, right? So often, I feel like in leadership, I heard an illustration recently from a guy that he talked about the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. And a thermometer just tells you what the temperature is. A thermostat sets the temperature. And we've got to become men and women that are setting the disciple-making temperature in our church, not just reading back what it is. We've got to be setting it and showing other people what it looks like, and setting the standard and living it out in front of people and modeling it for people, so that way they can see that happen, all right? And like we said a few minutes ago, I mean, if you're a church or a leader or a person out there that wants to, raise their hand and say, I want to be a catalyst, I want to be an early adopter, I want to get this done, reach out to us, man. We would love to come alongside of you and help you. We believe in you, and we want to see you become the best disciple possible who can go make disciples, and we want to see your church become the most amazing disciple-making factory as possible, without it, to quote another episode of ours, without it being an assembly line. But anyway, but guys, thank you. Please come check us out at Discipleship.org. We've got a ton of great resources and ebooks and blogs and articles. We also have a forum coming up in Houston, Texas. Man, we would love to have you there. Come and join us. Jason and I will both be there, and we'd love to hang out and get a chance to chat with you some and hear about your story. But don't miss it. We love you guys. Can't wait to see you next time. Please check us out. Like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. It almost makes me want to say pound it noggin, see ya, because my kids love Dude Perfect. But we'll see you guys next time. Take care.